Man,
Fool me once, I'm mad. Fool me twice, how could you? Fool me 3 times, you're officially that guy, okay? You know the one. You go to the bar, he's like, this suit is officially is a Giorgio Armani. Ask my dad knows, and fuck you! I ain't that shit!
Man, I love me some Jontron. Ever since I started watching him on Game Grumps back in like 2013 or so, he's become a big inspiration for me as a content creator. He's got a sense of humor that ranges from concise and sharp to brazen and downright chaotic, a rounded hybrid of post-AVGN commentary, Adult Swim's surrealism, and other various styles of internet memetry.
Wow, Bootleg Mufasa, you sure do suck, and I wish I never invited you over.
I respect the guy's growing ambition and production value in an age where one can get trapped in more or less doing the same thing forever. Or you can throw away a good chunk of your fan base by pivoting too far away from your initial appeal. Everyone's got their own preferred era of Jontron. I mean, I certainly prefer his middle period right before he got a proper studio set. Though I'll also concede that these days he's doing a pretty bang-up job of being H3H3 Productions, while H3H3 Productions themselves are...
It's a picture of him showing off his ass.
Got it with the dream, you know what I'm saying? All good.
I don't fucking...
There it goes! I'm weak.
He's one of the few people I watch who I can honestly say has never failed to get at least one solid laugh out of me with a given upload. So yeah, as an admitted fan of the man's work, I think it's appropriate to gush a bit, just to outline how much I genuinely respect his output. But that's enough of that. Sadly, the bulk of this video is going to be less about the channel and more about the man, because in recent years he's been a subject to pretty intense controversy, a magnet of contention amongst fans, peers, and those who threw those labels in the trash can. Over what, you might ask? Well, sadly, Jonathan Jon Jafari was a perpetrator of the most devious and toxic behaviors one with such a massive reach and influence on YouTube can take part in. I, of course, refer to Jon's heinous act of plagiarism. Now, wait a minute. Jonathan Tronathan? The one true not-so-grump? The nuts and bolts guy? Owner of Best Bird? Living GIF mine for an entire generation? A plagiarist? Surely you jest. Alas, jest I do not, and my oh-so-weighted charge against the man isn't aimed at any of his signature videos, none of his reviews, none of his musical projects, and certainly not any of his lost uploads.
It's like real me. You touch it all nice, Band-Aid.
No, sir, it lies in the little-known gem, Jontron's Happy Hour, an animated series where Mr. Jafari sits down with some drinking buddies and just shoots the shit.
Boys, it's good to see you all. What more does a guy need? Good beer, good friends, and good conversation.
It's charming, it's humble, it feels real in its premise and its structure, it's visually fun, it's the fucking Ricky Gervais show. I mean, like, look at it. There's really no other way to put it. The setup, the art style, the overall aura coming off of this thing is straight out of one of the most critically acclaimed comedies of the last 10 years. For those who don't know, The Ricky Gervais Show was a cartoon that originally aired in the early 2010s. It ran for 3 seasons and got a lot of glowing reviews from the industry. Probably the most notable one being from Seth MacFarlane, and, you know, while the guy may not necessarily be associated with the most premium content today.
Yeah, now turn around and lay an egg on the glass. Ah, yeah.
What you can't discredit is his own knowledge and reverence for pop culture, animated shows of the past in particular. For him to call this the best animation he's ever seen, that's pretty high praise.
Seth MacFarlane, creator of The Family Guy, said it's the best animation he's ever seen.
I don't like comments like that. Builds it up too much.
Then you have Gervais himself, by all accounts one of the most influential figures in modern entertainment. With The Office, he pioneered a whole new style of televised comedy, riding the line of fiction and reality in a way never before seen, and embracing the present-day seeds of what scholars, intellectuals, and owners of large, desirable dicks commonly refer to as cringe.
So, and that's played, Dave. Yeah.
He and co-creator Stephen Merchant then went on to host a radio show with mutual friend and producer Carl Pilkington. Their high-contrast, 3-piece chemistry made for some truly entertaining oral waves, and resulted in the podcast adaptation of the series becoming one of the most popular in podcast history, going as far to land #1 spots in Guinness Book of World Records. Anyway, this same show was adapted once more, this time for TV, bringing us back to this Ricky Gervais show, brought to visual life in a style heavily inspired by the works of Hanna-Barbera. All the hypotheticals and personal anecdotes are immortalized in very rewatchable sketches, making the dynamic between two TV legends and their lovably aloof best friend even more hilarious than it already was.
But then how dare you deprive that person of his last 8 hours or 10 hours of life?
I don't care because it's the last day on Earth.
What would you do?
I've always wanted to kick a duck up the arse.
With each season, the production value gradually goes up, shifting from warm and understated episodes to more springy and musically expressive bits. Having watched it all the way through several times, I can honestly say it's one of my favorite things ever. It nearly makes up for the fact that Rick's a bit of a narc these days who picks easy targets online and name searches himself to bully and condescend to critics no matter how small and ever-powered their Twitter followings are by his well-off, fuck-off, jack-off innovator status. Meanwhile, Carl, silly as he is and boomer as some of his views are, seems like a sweetheart who I'd love to brain pick and share a beer with.
I'm not into lining up a job before I've finished the last. I like to do one thing, get that done, see what happens. So this might be the end. You might never see me again.
I think we will.
You might not, though, I'm just saying.
Okay. Mr.
A lot of people will be happy about that.
Steve, he's fine. I think he had a hand in popularizing mouth singing to pop music on TV. Do with that what you will. The fuck was this video even about? Right. Guys at a table, talking shit, beady-eyed old-fashioned models atop hand-drawn backgrounds, breezy free-form back and forth between set and stories. I might sound kind of tinfoil hat here, but again, having watched this fucking thing 7 or 8 times, I know the vibe and feel like the back of my hand. The similarities don't end at the surface-level setup and aesthetics. The very rhythm and pulse of the show is right out of Rick's series. The cuts between the table and the little vignettes are nearly identical pace-wise. The music cues line up the exact same way, and the music itself is the same light, fancy orchestra stings.
I go round there, it is a toilet, but it's not plumbed in.
Sure.
So it's just a vase with shit in it. It doesn't work.
If I'm taking a shit and you call me, I will continue to talk to you as if nothing is wrong. That's why I don't tell you anymore, Michael. When you call me, I just pretend like I'm not on the
I used to tell you, and now look, you've ruined it. I just don't tell you. You realize that streaming is like better now.
Yeah, and what happens when the internet goes?
We're all fucked when the internet goes,
That's
Sergio.
because
We're gonna have other problems to worry about.
Yeah, but I don't know. I
don't have access to my bank.
It turned out that he was actually LAPD. I found out he had a gun, so I can't come in the airport with you. I can't take my gun. So he's armed.
They could be hearing your movements, figuring out when to bust in when you're
Exactly.
away.
They know how irregular I am.
Even the little micro moments they shove between talking points is done in a suspiciously samey way.
We have to face facts here.
Go on.
The world is old.
Hold on. All right, okay.
The
Yeah,
world's
it's
old.
The world is old. That is a fact. That is a fact.
All this adds up to what I can only call conceptual laziness, because the conversation and chemistry between JT and his friends is solid enough. You can sense the fun they have kicking back and having a few drinks, and I get the impression they've been buds for a while and have plenty of stories to talk about, but the execution of this show is just so similar to a pretty well-known and adored program, and I think he's more than capable of crafting his own vibe here. I mean, don't get me wrong, Ricky Gervais and company didn't invent the concept of sitting down and talking nonsense and animating it, but if you're going to visit this territory, you want to make sure to inject your own sensibilities into it. What we have here feels less like inspiration and more like tracing. 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 So this all in mind, and considering that it's now been years since this first and only episode of Jontron's After Hours, the future of the show is uncertain, but should Jontron decide to return with the program, he could do the following to make it work. Switching up the art style, going with a different genre of music from the Ricky Gervais show, and going with a more personalized flow. And editing rhythm. There's no shortage of animated versions of long-form content on YouTube. And while there's nothing wrong with following that template, there's also no shortage of originality to be found in this genre of video, as shown in animated versions of Jon's run on Game Grumps, and even his appearance on Sleepycast. Jon hasn't hesitated to hire some of his visual artist friends to collaborate on his brainchildren. But this creative misstep aside, it should be noted that since the airing of Jontron's After Hours, his brand and studio has come a long way from a guy with the camera in his living room. And he seems to have found a good team of collaborators who mesh with his particular writing style. It's good to know that one of the more unique and large-scale projects in this genre is comprised of a competent and diverse team of creatives. It is always good to foster a healthy mix of people with different resumes.
Anytime someone brings up an uncomfortable statistic,
and
you freak out
life
and burn things down or something.
Backgrounds.
Wealthy blacks also commit more crime than poor whites.
I understand why people looking at this think I'm some sort of explicit ethno-nationalist, but I'm not.
Anyway, enough of this bit. Enough of this meme. You've all been had. I don't actually care about the Ricky Gervais thing. Well, I care like a little bit. Like, it was pretty lazy. Like, it's just objectively not very original. I stand by all the points I've made. It's really fucking weird, because in watching and rewatching this dude's stuff the past few days, like, I feel how I feel. I legitimately think he's one of the funnier, better creators in his particular circle and genre. It's just, it's so, like it's the same conversation over and over again. Can you separate the art from the artist and all that contrived fucking circular bullshit? I go case by case. Depends on the crime, depends on the quality and influence of the work that they did. Jon's a funny motherfucker who's gotten me through some dark times just by being who he is. Entertainment's weird, art's weird, YouTube's weird, because you spend a few years just vibing, you're just having a gay old time, just kicking back and decompressing from the existential dread of life with some shit about movies and video games and comedy. And you know, I've had more than my fair share of parasocial relationship arcs where I got like too into a person or realized that, I'm not friends with these people, I'm just a consumer of their content. I assume most, if not all of them, are pretty decent people in real life, and it's good to find inspiration in what they do, but at the end of the day, you kind of gotta chill with that shit. This to say, it's not really my place to dictate what a given creator should or shouldn't believe in, but there's two sides to that coin. On one hand, yeah, they can do or say whatever they want. On the other hand, I'm allowed to have a fucking opinion about it. In my opinion, on Mr. Tron, has shifted over the past 3 or 4 years. I mean, the fucking Destiny debate is like a Rorschach test of where you stand politically. At the time that it happened, I was a centrist. Politically interested, but not very active in doing research of data and trying to understand where the left was coming from. At maximum, it just seemed like Jon went in over his head. He didn't prepare his statements. He was saying things that maybe he didn't put a whole lot of thought into. And this is a sentiment that continues to this day.
Yeah, no, I think people's political opinions matter. Like, that's the whole point.
Generally, I don't think people's politics matter.
Jontron argued in favor of a white ethno-state with Destiny.
The country was something like 92% white in 1950. It's changed. Now it's about 60% non-Hispanic white, I believe. These are epic demographic changes. I don't know that they come here and the soil magically turns them into Thomas Jefferson's direct descendant. So why is it that white people, especially white Americans, resisting their own displacement is racist?
Because you're
It's
talking
not
about
racist.
displacement. I'm trying to figure out what the displacement is. Nobody is killing white people. Nobody is moving white people out.
It's a soft displacement, dude. When they become the majority, they will vote in their own interests. They won't vote in white Americans' interests.
The dude's a white
Jontron
nationalist.
was in a debate where he was clearly talking about shit he knew nothing about.
That doesn't matter. I don't care. Nazis don't know what they're talking about.
Dude, that's where you're gonna fuck up and say something you don't mean. So he was in way over his...
How do you say something? Wait, how do you fuck up and accidentally become a white nationalist?
Blue cities are typically the ones contributing the vast majority of the budget and the money compared to the red rural areas.
Are you talking about southern states or something like this?
Sure. Yeah, the red states typically.
I mean, these states have high non-white populations that I believe. I mean, I don't want to get into. I don't want to.
Well, dude, because he probably did. I don't think he fucking meant that, right? He instantly went on afterwards and was like, "Yeah, I was just going down like a fucking. I was just way out of my league. I got nervous." Like that was his excuse.
Yeah, I was in there under a lot of pressure that I'm not used to being under, and as it became clear, I suck at debate. Things are being extracted from this that I know I don't think.
How do you get nervous and accidentally become a white nationalist?
And it's also hypocritical to keep saying you want to have an honest conversation about race if you don't actually want to have an honest conversation about race. And anytime someone brings up an uncomfortable statistic, you freak out. Pointing at a race and saying all of this race is blank is racist.
But they don't actually want to talk about what's causing black lives in America to be affected, which is young black males.
Okay, what's the problem with young black males?
Well, they commit disproportionate amount of crime in the country, and
Why do you
mostly
think they
against each
commit?
other.
Why do they commit a disproportionate amount of crime?
Well, we can go into that forever, and I don't really want to go into it.
So people like you are why BLM exists. What you just said was like so mind-numbingly like arrogant. Like, do you think they just do it because they're black? Because the negroid skull like predisposes them to crime? Well, then why did you laugh there when I asked you that?
Because I don't want to go. I don't want to incriminate myself, and because I'm not.
Why are
really
you so
qualified.
scared of saying something that's going to come off as racist? Don't you think that's a little bit predictive of?
You're like going on a what's one of those talk shows where they try to trap you.
Do you feel like you're being
You should go on
trapped?
CNN, dude. You should work for CNN.
The problem is now that I've entered a second or third age of reason, whatever the fuck that is, that definition changes every couple of years in my head. I've come to accept that the motherfucker was saying some pretty fucked up shit. He was parroting a lot of talking points that some not so very cool people tend to say. I'll leave a link down below to the Rational Wiki digest that gives time codes and sums up why what he was saying may or may not have been problematic during that debate. What it all boils down to is once I came to my senses, once I took off the rosy-tinted glasses of trying to defend my fucking waifu, it hit me that he was saying some shit that should the people who firmly believe in those values get what they want, some really dark, fashy, overprotective, over-controlling policies would go into place. And yeah, it's all well and good to say in isolated conversations that you want everyone to be happy and you want everyone to be given an equal opportunity to live a prosperous, peaceful, safe life.
I understand we have people here who are white, who are black, and I want them all to feel respected and loved. And of course, like it's ridiculous to think that I don't want that.
The main question on everyone's mind is, is he a racist? Is he a Nazi? Simple answer, and this is what everyone wants. I mean, no, I treat every single person with the same respect they afford me.
You can't have your cake and eat it too. You have to put enough thought into your own politics and personal values to know on your own insides if you're actually taking action to guarantee that these values you claim to have can formulate in the society you live in. And John didn't really do that because he fell into a similar trap that I did around that time. The fucking reactionary pipeline. Where one minute you're watching some dudes debunk some fucking weird religious stuff. You go along for the ride for a few years and suddenly you're just kind of vibing with whatever comes out of their mouth, even though you're not really entirely sure what they're trying to sell to you.
There's this thing called political correctness. In case someone gets offended, they can be offended. So now people go, I was offended. offended. Sticks and stones may break my bones. Be offended. Grow up. Deal with it. I was offended. I don't care. Please just stop being offended.
One thing that's always bugged me was like, why Sargon?
An archive link sort of dropped into my timeline. I don't even remember how I found it. But it was called the Library of Hate Facts. And I thought, if I say things that are apparently scientifically verifiable, it's okay. These are not moral judgments about any individuals. So we'll begin with Arabs and Islam.
Even at that time, even while I was watching a lot of the anti-SGW channels that were popular around that period, I was like, man, of all the fucking people he could have been on a podcast with or who he could have repeated talking points from, it had to be fucking Sargon of Akkad.
With 300,000 retweets. Fuck you, Bernie.
Mr. Butt Mad Benjamin, Mr. Robin Hood, Manon, it's not me.
To me, it's just seemed like for the past 4 years or so, it's been like, you know, the people that are like trolling these SJWs and then the SJWs themselves.
Basically, but the people who are going against the SJWs, they didn't go and find them. The SJWs burst in and were like, right, everyone's a racist. You all hate women.
Oh, no, you're so right about that. I mean, like all the people, like myself included, I feel like I was like, wow, life is great. I enjoy the internet and my friends. And then they came in like, hey there, straight white male. looking to give up some of your patriarchy. I noticed that you guys were a growing movement, and I was like, these guys are going to be like, you know, the future, hopefully.
Off chink, it's okay for me to call you this because racism is power plus prejudice.
This isn't the first time Mr. Benjamin has faced questions about his choice of words. I previously challenged him over comments he made about rape.
There are people who are deeply offended by some of the things that you've said.
Well, I tell you what, they can go and have a cry, and when they've collected themselves and they're ready to talk like an adult about the issues and not bring up things that they think might be offensive and spread them around the country to people who might be offended by them, then we can have a sensible conversation about the issues. Fuck off! Trump did not try to divide you by race, religion, and gender and nationality. You are the cunts dividing people by race and gender.
I'd love to be proven wrong.
And, you know, typically I don't try to get like this exact and literal with articulating what my political views are, because I get it. It's a lot. We're all just trying to live our lives. We're all just trying to survive and make do with the hand that we've been given. But this, all this, that, especially this, it's all fucking connected. And if you have a bunch of eyes on you, you gotta handle that responsibly.
One, I can't defend Jontron because I don't know that situation super well, dude. I don't know anything about like these economic policies, right? I mean, look, dude, I don't know a whole lot about like trans people in the military or what that does, all right? I have no idea.
Do you know what it is to be morally lucky?
No, I have no fucking clue.
Okay, so to be morally lucky means that you were basically raised to believe a certain set of ideas, but you don't have the arguments to hold up those beliefs. Like, for example, you may be raised believing that, oh yeah, it's not bad, like black people are fine, immigration is good, but you may not have the arguments to believe those things. So when someone comes along and makes what sounds like a really good argument about why black people actually, like for example, people say that despite being 13% of the population, black people commit 50% of the crime. How would you argue against that statistic? No, I'm asking right now, how would you argue against that statistic? Despite being 13% of the population, black people commit 50% of crime. How would you argue against that statistic if you didn't already know the argument?
I have no idea. I've never fucking heard of this shit.
Okay, so if you're an edgy little fucking 16-year-old or 17-year-old and you are raised to believe that you should treat everybody equally, and you hear somebody in a suit that looks very, very, very professional and sounds like they're making good arguments, that tells you, yeah, well, black people commit a lot more crime than they should be, for their population. How would you argue against that?
What the fuck are you on about?
If they're very, very loud about their beliefs and they have large public figures that are able to push their ideas like Richard Spencer and Nick Fuentes.
Really? What has Richard Spencer gotten done?
Richard Spencer was a large leader of the Unite the Right rally back in 2017, which ended up murdering an innocent woman. On top of that, the Christchurch shooter talked about how he was radicalized by online right-wing figures as well, and he murdered 50 people in a mass shooting in New Zealand last year. There's been...
Nick Fuentes murdered 50 people?
No.
No, I know. Dude, I fucking heard you. I'm fucking with you, bro. Dude, but these guys are largely irrelevant to the mainstream.
They were a couple years ago. Not to mention Nick Fuentes is still relevant, and he's in favor of slavery.
The dude doesn't believe. I don't know anything about these.
Yeah, maybe you should educate yourself before going after a political figure. Then,
Xander, you just sound like you're fucking crazy, dude.
You sound like you're a fucking idiot.
That was good.
Jon Jafari went on a fucking debate and said some really hurtful shit that I personally, as a biracial dude, find pretty fucking socially hypocritical of him. He says he wants everyone to be happy. He surrounds himself with people of differing life, racial backgrounds by the looks of it, which is good. That's objectively good. Why you gotta say the birth rates thing? Like, that shit really fucking hurts my feelings, dude.
You need to have the people assimilate, so it needs to be slow. It needs to be slow.
Okay, but
I'm
you're not
saying-
now you're talking about assimilation. So what if whites became the minority, but most brown people assimilated to the culture? Would that be okay then?
Yeah, but if they assimilated, they would enter the gene pool eventually and would just, I mean, but we're talking...
Become white?
No, not become white, but...
What do you mean then?
But that's how it worked. That's how it, if it happens...
So you're saying that brown people would come over and they would marry themselves off to white people, and then eventually they would all kind of turn white?
I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. People would be free to choose. But what I'm saying is, like, if you do it slow enough, that the country doesn't have a
color shift
culture.
So even if whites became the minority, then it wouldn't be a bad thing if people integrated. We can agree on that?
Yeah, sure.
Then
But
shouldn't the focus
that's not
be
how
on
it works, though.
So shouldn't the focus then be on getting integration to work better rather than just restricting all immigration and hurting the potential economic growth of the country?
This is like saying, why would you do? But you don't know what. Why do you need? See, you have some moral ulterior motive.
My moral ulterior motive is to maximize the economic growth of the country and to maximize the slice of the pie for every person in the United States. That's my ulterior motive. I want the country to be as successful as it can be and grow as fast as possible.
Okay, hold on. First of all, when I state this argument, it makes me sound like I have a problem with people who aren't white. That's not true.
Both my parents had to deal with prejudice of some kind. My mom's white, my dad's Filipino. When my dad came over, my mom and him started dating, and there was a bit of backlash from some of his immediate family of interracial relationships, sticking to your own, maintaining your culture. And while I think respecting and protecting certain cultural elements of one's life is important, there comes a point where you can't be micromanaging that shit. It really isn't any of your goddamn business. So when you say, oh, then it gets into the gene pools, or, oh, we're becoming a minority, we should be able to take action to avoid that sort of thing, you're one, admitting that there's something a little fucky about being a minority, i.e., if I'm living in this particular situation, I'm going to be a target of some pretty fucked up shit from the majority. And two, B, Z, I don't fucking know what metric I'm using. You're demonstrating a willingness to say shit that was literally said like 60, 70 years ago when the bad people were doing the bad things that we read all the time in the books. But that's the past. This is a distant past. We've learned so fucking much since then. Oh yeah, we've learned so much. It's nothing but love and acceptance and looking out for your fellow man now. Yep. That's the world we're living in. If there's been one thing that 2020 and, even some of the years leading up to 2020 has shown us, we're super tolerant of each other. Nothing but love. Nothing but love. And since then he's gone on record saying, "Oh, I didn't put a lot of research. I wasn't prepared to talk about those things." There's only so much preparation you can do for saying shit like that. It doesn't really nullify the core ideas of what you're suggesting. From that time forward, I did get into Destiny for a bit, and what I've learned is no matter who you get into content-wise, that relationship's going to be rocky along the way. John did it. Destiny's done it. I'm watching Vosh and Xanderhall right now. I can only imagine how long it's going to be before they do or say something that's really fucked up, and I go, oh, my perception of them has been totally shattered. It's a lot. You gotta go case by case. You gotta stick to your principles and just say when shit bugs you. And this really has bugged me. Over the years, I've had to accept that, yeah, is kind of fucky what you say sometimes, dude. And then you'll do that thing where it's like, I'm just gonna focus on entertaining you guys. I'm just gonna focus on doing me. My job is to be a comedian, so I'm gonna do comedy. I'm not gonna dip into this stuff. I don't wanna make it sound like I'm saying something that I'm not, even though you're literally saying something.
You know, I look back at some of that and I'm like, why the fuck did I say that? Like, this is no matter what, right or wrong, this is a fucking bad look there. You know, I'm aware of that. I really don't want to get into this. I would like to move on as quickly as possible. I just want to make people laugh. That's really, I'm not trying to get back into this.
You know, any of the things in the stream that could be considered weird sounding or off-putting, I probably agree with you that they were. So I hope you don't read too much into it.
Right or wrong, this is a fucking bad look there.
And then when given an opportunity to just like be a total basic lib virtue signaler, what do? You say you want to grill. You wouldn't even have to say I'm pro-Trump or anti-Trump. You wouldn't have to say I'm pro-BLM or anti-BLM. You could have just said, I hope everyone works together to sort all of this out. But you didn't say that. You went with the fucking edgy status quo bullshit that anyone else who like has opinions about what's happening but doesn't want to say it because they don't want to make it like a whole thing. So yeah, that's all that's in here. I just, the world is weird right now. And as far as whether or not I'm gonna support, like I researched him. I kept watching his shit. Like, you know, in the end, it's like, oh, don't support someone you don't agree with politically or who you think is saying shit that's wrong. Well, what am I gonna? He's one of the most popular fucking entertainers on the platform. He's funny. I like his old shit. You know, regardless of the guy's politics, I think his old shit in particular is really good. And I think what he's working on now is pretty funny. I laugh at it. And his content, for the most part, isn't really that fucking political. It's so fucking frustrating because he'll make fun of Reagan era politics. He'll make fun of like the paranoia that a lot of like conservatively minded people, you know, express for things like drugs or, you know, gun safety or whether or not D&D is fucking evil, you know, that sort of thing. Like, it's not like he's incapable of doing good. Like, he does charity. It's not the first time he's done charity. He's done charity a few times. Got eclectic interests. He's good at what he does. It's just, how come the weird parts of you can't just, like, be liking feet or something? Why is it gotta low-key just be fucking weird-ass Breitbart nationalist rhetoric? Like, you had a hat and then you didn't have a hat and then you got a new hat, and you know, some people might have looked at that and be like, what's up with that hat? I thought the hat was cool. I was pro new hat. You should wear whatever you want to wear. It's just such a strange person. But I got plenty of those in my family. I got plenty of those in my life. Hell, one of my best friends that I've made in the last 5 years voted for Trump years and years ago. I mean, he deeply regretted it after the fact, like almost immediately. We're all on our own different journey. We're all learning what we're going to learn at the given time as we go along. I aggressively disagree with what a lot of people believe in my country, in my family, in my friend group, in my peer circles. And I do think it's important to express disdain. I do think it's important to elevate and magnify voices that you think are saying what needs to be said. It's just, there's a lot of fucking baddies in this world, and I don't know what to do. I don't know. Like, is this annoying? Am I being annoying? Go watch the Ricky Gervais show. It's really good. You can watch it on Amazon Prime. Season 3 is not available for purchase anywhere for some reason, which is really annoying. But Starcade is good, actually. Sometimes when I'm sad, I rewatch the entirety of the Grumps playthrough of Goof Troop to make myself feel better. It's one of those chicken noodle soup type playthroughs that just makes you giggle and makes you feel nice and warm. I'll talk about something music-y next time, just because I know this might have been a lot for people to digest, because it is all over the place. It's like half real video and half the vlog and think piece, half fucking, I don't think there's an English word for what I'm doing right now. If there was one, it would sound like a gross, like, German onomatopoeia, like this is, and that's what this is.